The sleek chrome stadium echoed with a cacophony of roars, screeches, and guttural chants as the Galactic Games reached their climax. I, Captain Alex Holden of the human delegation, sat in the designated terrestrial seating area alongside my team. We were surrounded by a sea of alien species, bulbous, scaled, even though shimmering with bioluminescence. It had been 10 cycles since Earth gained entrance to the grand, once-a-millennium spectacle. 10 cycles of humiliation and orchestrated failures. "Remember, humans," sneered Gorblax, the Gorganian announcer, his multifaceted eyes gleaming. "The scoreboards tell no lies." Indeed, they didn't. Humans languished at the bottom, our 0 points a stark contrast to the other civilizations boasting scores in the thousands. The games were designed to test the very limits of physiology, intellect, and cultural fortitude. Races where our bipedal bodies were a joke, puzzles our feeble brains couldn't fathom, and ritualistic trials that highlighted our painfully primitive heritage. We were the token losers, added to appease some intergalactic diversity initiative. "Let us begin the final event, the Scavenger Hunt of Xylar," Gorblax declared. Groans reverberated around me. The hunt was a notorious endurance race spanning the harshest environments of the host planet. In past years, humans never made it past the first hour, yet this year, I had a strange feeling simmering beneath my skin. A mix of apprehension and anticipation? My eyes fell upon one of my teammates, Jack Tripwire Johnson. He was a scrawny man with eternally untied shoelaces and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. Hardly the picture of athletic prowess, but there was a sharp glint in his eye that gave me pause. As the starting klaxon blared, contestants lunged forward in a motley swarm. The Gorgonians, with their 8 legs and rock-hard exoskeletons, instantly surged ahead. The avians of Polaris Prime took to the air, their iridescent wings beating in impossible patterns. We humans, however, looked downright comical, stumbling on the rocky volcanic terrain while the others sped into the distance. The first checkpoint appeared in the form of a shimmering force field nestled within a narrow fissure. Species renowned for their agility slithered through with ease. Others used specialized sensory organs to detect a bypass route. Humans, however, seemed stumped. 10 of my teammates were already down, nursing twisted ankles and bruised egos. "Looks like these primates haven't even grasped the concept of obstacle," Gorblax's taunt boomed across the stadium. That's when Jack shambled forward. I knew his backstory like all the others. He'd been a parkour enthusiast back on Earth, an adrenaline junkie drawn to urban landscapes. Now faced with an unyielding wall of energy, he simply shrugged, reached into his utility belt, and whipped out an antiquated ball of twine. With practiced flicks of the wrist, he tossed a grappling hook over the shield. He then scrambled up the rope with surprising speed. To the jeers of the crowd, Jack hauled himself over, disappeared into the fissure, and a minute later emerged on the other side. He'd bypassed the challenge entirely and was waving cheekily from the next checkpoint. A murmur spread through the stadium, a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. Gorblax's booming voice cut through the murmurs. "A fluke, I assure you," he declared, although the usual derision was replaced by a flicker of unease. The race continued, and at each checkpoint the humans employed unorthodox solutions. Emily Chen, a former computer programmer, cracked a complex security code using an algorithm she once designed for a video game. When confronted with a vast chasm, the rest of the contestants searched frantically for a bridge or debated flying methods. Yet our team huddled together, whispering intensely and pointing at a distant rock formation. With growing trepidation, I watched as they constructed a crude catapult out of tree branches and strips of scavenged fabric. Then Jake, a former linebacker with a booming laugh and a build like a refrigerator, climbed into the makeshift sling. An ear-splitting twang later, he went soaring over the gorge, landing with a bone-jarring thud. "Rule number 37, Gorblax announced, his voice tight. "No external propulsion devices." He looked at the humans who were now calmly setting up another catapult. "Rule 37, he amended hastily, applies only to non-organic propulsion devices." As the human team progressed, a wave of change swept across the stadium. The initial mockery from the crowd was replaced by a tense excitement, a begrudging acknowledgement that something unexpected was unfolding. The games were about proving superiority, yes, but with rules, standards, and a known hierarchy. What the humans were doing What Jack and Emily and Jake were doing was, well, it was messy, chaotic, unpredictable, and undeniably effective. By the final stretch, whispers of a human victory buzzed even among the alien delegations. I could see Gorblax practically vibrate with rage beneath his shimmering scales. The Hunt of Xylar was his brainchild, designed to be an unwinnable spectacle of human failure, to see us approaching the finish line, not through sheer physical prowess, but by means of ingenuity and sheer defiance, was an affront to the entire power structure of the games. The last task was simple yet deceptively challenging. A towering monolith adorned with alien symbols stood at the summit of an obsidian peak. The first to decipher the code and touch the peak would be crowned the victor. The aliens, with a history spanning thousands of cycles, possess vast archives of intergalactic languages and symbols. For the humans, it would be a futile chase, or so they assumed. That's when it hit me. Jack, the tripwire, with his clumsy gait and loose laces. His unkempt appearance was a facade, wasn't it? The shoelaces, constantly untying, weren't a sign of sloppiness, but a tripwire to sense the subtle vibrations of shifting alien languages. Emily, with her hunched posture over her notepad, wasn't scribbling code at all. She was an artist, a master sketcher, committing to memory the intricate shapes and patterns of an alphabet unknown on Earth. And Jake, with his ground-shaking strides, was the key. I watched as he strode to the base of the monolith and unleashed a primal roar, the sheer force of it sending tremors through the stone. In response, the symbols of the monolith shifted, glowed, transformed. Jack, the linguistic savant, cried out, "It's responding to sonic frequencies!" One by one, Jake roared specific notes he'd learned to mimic from a rare breed of songbirds on a backwater Earth colony. With each call, the symbols on the monolith rearranged themselves, and Emily, with artistic precision, translated them. The aliens watched in bewildered silence as the humans decoded the final cipher. Finally, Jake, barely pausing for breath, launched himself up the transformed monolith, handholds now glowing faintly where none existed before. He reached the top and slammed his palm down upon the peak just as a swarm of reptilian competitors clawed their way to within a hair's breadth of doing the same. Deafening silence descended upon the stadium. An epoch of uncontested superiority had crumbled before us. No one spoke, not Gorblax nor the Galactic Council, whose faces were etched with a potent mix of shock and a dawning fear. I, for one, was grinning. It wasn't a civilized grin, not by their standards. It held wildness and satisfaction, the echoes of long nights planning amidst scoffs and dismissive predictions. Earth, so long treated as a sideshow, refused to play its part anymore. "Announce the results, Gorblax," I demanded, my voice echoing across the vast expanse. For a stretched moment I held the gaze of the announcer, saw his multifaceted eyes narrow. When he finally spoke, his voice was devoid of its usual theatrical boom. "The winners of the Scavenger Hunt of Xylar, and therefore the overall victors of the Galactic Games, are the humans of the Sol System," Gorblax croaked out. Cheers erupted. From the stands, even some of the alien spectators found their voices, a hesitant applause at first, then growing, gaining momentum. For wasn't it thrilling to witness the impossible? To see an underdog turn the tables on the very game designed to keep them down? We humans, outcasts, no longer basked under the spotlight we'd seized, and though the Galactic Council stared at us with cold, calculating eyes, I sensed it. The shift, that delicious ripple of uncertainty that precedes a profound change in the order of things. In the days following the impossible victory, invitations poured in. The Galactic Trade Guild, once closed to us, suddenly wanted to analyze our unique approaches to logistics and market solutions. Renowned academies across the stars offered scholarships eager to study the minds that turned parkour and a ball of twine into strategic tools. Most intriguing of all was the discreet message from an obscure wing of the Galactic Council itself, a request for consultation, humans advising their former overlords on a subject titled Creative Problem Solving and Adaptability in Adverse Circumstances. Jack, Emily, and Jake, dubbed the accidental heroes, found themselves catapulted into a whirlwind of diplomatic dinners and intergalactic symposiums. They faced baffled scientists, irritated trade moguls, even the stone-faced Galactic Council. Yet through it all, there was an unspoken truth that hummed beneath the surface. They were no longer laughingstocks. We had broken the mold. One human afternoon on the Xylarian moonbase, I cornered Jack underneath the glittering chandeliers of an alien palace with rare delicacies from across the galaxy laid out before us. I saw the same scruffy, unassuming man who tripped over his own feet at the games. "You knew, didn't you?" I asked, spearing an exotic fruit. "The shoelaces, the scribbling, all of it?" He didn't deny it. Instead, he shrugged, that crooked grin spreading across his face. "Call it a hobby," he said. "Turns out, all those imperfections the aliens mocked, they come in damn useful." We watched as Emily, surrounded by a cluster of scientists, held forth on something called lateral thinking, while Jake effortlessly charmed an audience of potential investors. We were the anomalies now, the unpredictable force in an otherwise rigid, calculated galaxy. And I realized that Galactic Games weren't merely a trophy to boast about back on Earth. They were a starting point, the glorious what if that sparked a revolution. News of the Great Reversal, as the media had dubbed it, spread across the Earth like wildfire. At first, there was disbelief, quickly followed by a surge of defiant pride. We weren't just tolerated in this grand cosmic scheme, we'd outwitted it, and on our terms. Suddenly, that small blue marble on the edge of the spiral arm didn't feel quite so insignificant. Back on Earth, things changed in subtle yet profound ways. Kids who once dreamt of playing for galactic sports teams now studied ancient Earth languages. Art galleries once scoffed at as frivolous showcased masterpieces in code cracking and abstract strategizing. Tripwire shoelaces became the season's hottest fashion trend, clumsiness an aspirational trait. But perhaps the most significant change rippled out from the heart of the world's governments. Faced with undeniable proof of humanity's unique potential, centuries-old rivalries and power struggles began to soften. There was a newfound willingness to collaborate, a hesitant reaching out across the borders for advice, joint initiatives, shared problem-solving. We were, after all, the experts in thinking outside the box, in turning weaknesses into unexpected strengths. Word was, even the Galactic Council was in shambles. There were factions now, whispers of a power shift between the old guard and those intrigued by the potential disruption the humans represented. Some feared us, but there were others who saw something exciting in our defiance, in our chaotic potential to upend the status quo. I was called in as a consultant for the Council, flown to the Galactic headquarters on a ship that still held the faint whiff of an alien menagerie. The Council chamber loomed before me, grand, ancient, and infused with the weight of a power structure millennia in the making. And there I was, Alex Holden, captain of a small delegation from a civilization so young, so insignificant in their eyes, until very, very recently. "State your intent, humans," boomed the imposing voice of the Gorlaxian head counselor. I took a deep breath, the eyes of the Council raking over me. Had the sneer in their gazes lessened, or was it just wishful thinking? "We're not here for dominance or control," I began. That much was true. Humans with our messy history of conflict and greed hadn't suddenly become saints. But we'd been humbled, given a taste of being the perpetual underdog, and it left its mark. We propose collaboration, an exchange. You have knowledge, resources, technologies we can only dream of. We, I said, spreading my hands wide, offer a different way of thinking, an unpredictable spark. The silence that followed wasn't the dismissive kind. It was thoughtful, weighing the pros and cons. Finally, a delicate, multi-legged being, an avian from Polaris Prime, spoke, its synthesized voice musical and inquiring. "What sort of collaboration?" "Everything," I said, a surge of confidence rushing through me. "Trade routes? Let us find the shortcuts. The loopholes no one else would consider. Scientific quandaries slowing down your progress? We'll offer up the ridiculous ideas that might just work. Even your rigid galactic games," I paused here, a grin tugging at my lips, "could use a dash of human chaos." A wave of agitated squeaks and hisses rippled through the chamber. Change, especially the unexpected kind, was rarely comfortable. Yet, amidst the dissent, the avian head tilted, the flicker of curiosity in its beady eyes unmistakable. "Perhaps," a deep rumbling voice from somewhere along the reptilian delegates interjected, "A demonstration is in order." My heart skipped a beat. One chance. That's all we might get. A single shot to prove that the victory in the games wasn't a fluke, that humanity had potential worth exploring, and deep down, I ached to prove it wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about demonstrating that differences, even uncomfortable ones, could forge a path to something entirely new. The Galaxian head counselor, perhaps tired of the bickering, or perhaps sensing a way to contain the human threat under the guise of control, made the ultimate decision. "You will be assigned a project," he announced, his voice resonating with a forced neutrality. "One deemed unsolvable." "Name it," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the nervous flutter in my stomach. "The enigma of the Void Drifters." A collective gasp went through the chamber. The Void Drifters were a semi-mythical race, almost spectre-like, who drifted in the outermost edges of charted space. Rumors abounded of their technology, said to be centuries ahead of even the most advanced civilizations. Yet every attempt at contact had ended in failure, ships mysteriously disappearing, signals going dead. The drifters remained an enigma, jealously guarding their secrets in isolation. A test indeed, and one perfectly tailored to highlight the futility of human efforts amidst the vastness of space. They were setting us up to fail, spectacularly. Yet, I wasn't afraid. There was a fire ignited in me after the games, a strange mixture of stubborn defiance and reckless excitement. "We accept your challenge," I said boldly. There was a flicker in the head counselor's eyes, surprise, amusement. Either one meant victory. We had piqued their interest. The terms were simple, brutal in their clarity. Humans had one standard cycle to unlock the mystery of the Void Drifters, to establish meaningful contact and learn what we could about their technology. Success would mean an open door to a wealth of knowledge and the grudging respect of the galaxy's elite. Failure would solidify our reputation as those who stumbled and fumbled through luck, never truly worthy of a place among the stars. Back on Earth, a flurry of preparations began. Top scientists, linguists, and strategists from all corners of the globe were hastily assembled in an underground bunker. I was given full reign over this ragtag think tank, our best and brightest minds all facing the impossible task of bridging the gap between humankind and an enigmatic reclusive species. We began by dissecting every scrap of information on the Void Drifters. Their movements seemed random, untraceable by conventional scanners. Their communications remained indecipherable, a frustrating mix of dead ends and seemingly nonsensical codes. And every time one of our finest starships braved the journey towards the Drifter territory, it returned with malfunctioning systems, as if an unknown force was repelling them before they even caught a glimpse of the elusive inhabitants. "They're not just advanced," muttered Emily, her fingers flying across a holographic projection of what we knew as Drifter space. "They're operating on a whole other level." It was Jake who made the breakthrough. He sat amidst the chaos, not poring over reports, but fiddling with a piece of salvaged alien tech we retrieved from a previous expedition. "They don't want to be found, right?" he mumbled, flipping the device over in his hands. "What if they're not hiding, but phasing? Existing just out of sync with regular spacetime?" It was the spark we needed. Our physicists, initially dismissive, started taking a fresh look at the way the drifter ships seemed to vanish. It was a long shot, a gamble based on an ex-football player's intuition, yet amidst the looming deadline, we were fueled by that same desperate energy that had carried us through the Galactic Games. We modified a small exploration pod, retrofitted it with a chaotic array of frequency scramblers, subspace distortion generators, and yes, even an amplified speaker built to Jake's sonic specifications. I went myself, the weight of the mission settling on my shoulders as the pod left Earth's atmosphere. The journey was a disorienting symphony of flashing lights and shifting gravitational fields. Every siren shrieked a warning of impending system overload, and then, in the heart of the Drifter territory, nothing. Silence. Emptiness. I closed my eyes, summoning Jake's booming roar from the depths of my memory, and I let it out. A discordant yell that cracked through the artificial soundscape of the pod. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, A flicker on the sensors, a subtle shift in the fabric of space, and emerging from the distorted veil like a mirage materializing was a ship. Sleek, organic in design, and undeniably that of the Void Drifters. Finally, contact. The pod lurched violently, pulled in by some unseen force. Panic rose in my throat, quickly replaced by a fierce determination. We'd done it. We'd solved the enigma of the Void Drifters, not through superior science, not through grand strategies, but with a symphony of chaos, with Jake's primal yell and Emily's desperate hunch, with the most uniquely human way of doing the impossible.